Hello, and welcome back to Your Story is Your Portal. And today we are going to be exploring your unconscious stories. As you know from last week's episode, we are now in a new location. This location is still in Sayulita, but it's a new writer's retreat. It has 6 casitas, and so we're going to be able to host our writers in individual, very cute, sweet casitas, very Mexican style. And I'm really, really happy to be here. Now, one of the things that led us here was our unconscious stories. It's very interesting that this episode, I was inspired to talk about our unconscious stories because we are always like running a program. And of course, this whole podcast show is all about our stories. And what we haven't talked about is our unconscious stories because we have these programs that are running in the background, and that is actually controlling our whole destiny. And of course, those unconscious stories are those that are based on our upbringing, our ancestors, even bringing in any ancestral and generational trauma, as well as our stories from childhood, which unconsciously we may not be even consciously aware of them, or certainly not that they're running our programs every single day. And it's not until you get to a point in your life that you can start to really put together all of the clues of what is happening in your life, and then suddenly say, oh, I see. It's actually my unconscious stories that are running my program, running my everyday life. So the question is, how can you become consciously aware of your unconscious stories? And it's very interesting because, we talk about synchronicity, for example, and, we go, oh, isn't that amazing that, that happened, or this happened, or I happened to bump into that person. But did you ever consider that all synchronicity actually is our unconscious stories that are actually running our programs. I think the only way I can describe it is to give you an example with a very personal story. So, as you know, in the last few weeks, it's been a little chaotic. We went through the 999. We went through the port of the eclipse season. A lot of people had a lot of upheaval, a lot of changes. A lot of people were shedding off the old to welcome in the new. And certainly from my perspective, my long-term relationship ended, and my the writing retreat where house that I was using for my writer's retreat was destroyed by the storm, which meant that my writing retreat had to be postponed like the day before it was due to start. And then I had to find a new home. In the process of that, my computer got damaged. And so I had to buy a brand new PC. And so talk about letting go of the old and embracing the new. I mean, I have most definitely been doing that over the over the last few weeks. But what I didn't know is that my unconscious stories and my unconscious programming. I keep talking about that like we're in the matrix, right? So we're in the matrix, and I think of it as we're all playing a part in the movie of the Matrix. And what we don't realize is that our, those unconscious behaviors, those unconscious stories, the ones that we're not really thinking about those stories as such. We're getting on with our life, and we have our goals, and we have our work, and we have our everyday life. But what we don't realize is what's playing in the background. So I kept pushing through because, that's my nature. I'm very resilient. And so I'm pushing through all of these challenges. Even today, I spent probably 3 or 4 hours trying to get my new PC set up with Zoom and the camera and the speaker, and I had a beautiful background outside by the pool, and I just could not get the microphone to work, and so I ended up having to come back inside just as it's getting dark. And it's been literally quite a number of weeks of challenges all of the time. So in the background, unconsciously, my whole system, my nervous system, everything is just like going, this is too much. This is just too much. You just keep going, keep going, keep going. And now you don't have any support system at all. So here I am, Jennifer went back to Canada. Daniel and I, our relationship ended, and I'm in a brand new home that's right now it's completely empty. So I'm here all by myself. I'm in a brand new, for me, town, Sayulita. So I haven't established any friendships, or there's some acquaintances, but I haven't really got any deep friendships. And so I was in the background running. I'm brave, and I'm resilient, and I'm strong, and I'm just getting on with it, challenge after challenge after challenge. And then I had one challenge that was just, I needed to go to Bucerius, and I didn't have any transport, and I was feeling really overwhelmed. And I was supposed to be picking up this money from Western Union that somebody was sending me. And I was like, Julie, just push through. And I put it off, and I put it off. And eventually I got to the point where I said, okay, that's it. I've got to go. I'm going to call. I'm going to see if I can get an Uber or InDriver. I don't know that even exists in Sayulita. And I'm going to go to Bucerius. I'm just going to get the job done. And then it's over and it's done. And then I can come back here. So timing wise, there was nothing, didn't have a plan. I wasn't like, I'm going to leave here at 3 o'clock, for example. So off I go, and and I'm feeling overwhelmed. I've got a lot on my plate, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I get to the bank to get my Western Union transfer, and it's almost as though I knew that it wasn't going to work. And they just, in Mexico, they do this lovely thing where they just kind of hand you back, and they just kind of shake their head and say no, right? And you kind of go, what do you mean no? Like, what's wrong? Like, and I should be able to get this money. Here's the number, and they're just like, oh no, it's not working. And I'm so frustrated because I'm thinking, well, what do I do from here? I just had the taxi ride from hell to get there, and I'm like, what do I do now? And anyway, so I'm feeling really frustrated, and where the bank is, it's in like a department store. And so I went and just sat down on one of the sofas, in the furniture department, and I was just like feeling so overwhelmed. I'm like, what am I going to do now? I don't know where to go from here. And I looked outside and could see like the black clouds were gathering. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to get caught in the rain as well. And I was just feeling very overwhelmed. And I went back to the bank guy, and I said, look, is there another Western Union in Bucerius? Is that the problem? And he's like, well, you could try Guadalajara Pharmacy. And I'm like, I know that's not going to work because they have limits. And even though you have these stores that act like a bank, they don't have the cash to be able to have a big withdrawal. So, they're trying to convince me I should get on this bus or I should walk. And I'm like, no. My gut is telling me, Julie, don't even think about it. Just give up on this. You just have to give up. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to give up. I'm just gonna get a cab back. I'm going to get an Uber back home, and I'm just going to put this down to a bad experience. So just before I'm about to leave, I remembered I needed some coffee filters, and the supermarket's right next door. So off I went, and I was feeling really like, I don't know why, but I think it's all of that, all of those unconscious stories that had been stacking up, all the things that had been happening, and in the last few weeks. I mean, there was a lot that happened in the last few weeks. I haven't even talked to you about some of the other things, with family that happened, but a lot of things happened. And it just all suddenly like welled up, and I just started to cry. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in the middle of a supermarket and I'm crying, right? So okay, I just need to like get to security, and I need to get to the washroom, or, I just need to pull myself together. And so as I'm thinking that, I'm walking into the store, and as I'm walking into the store, I look in front of me, and there is Daniel walking directly towards me. And I'm just, I've been crying. I'm still like very emotional. And he just looked at me. We hadn't even been in contact for 2 weeks. We had an occasion. It was actually when the evening that we were homeless because of the house was in the storm. So emotions were running very high, but I had, high temper, and Daniel had kind of stalked off, and I was like, "That's it, don't ever call me again." And of course, I took that literally and said, "I'm never going to call him again." So we hadn't been in contact for 2 weeks, and he just looked at me and he went, "What happened? Like, your energy is so low." And he could see, that I had been crying, and I just put my arms around him, and I just said, I I'm not having a good day. I'm not having a good day. And I really miss you. I really miss your support. And so we got talking, and of course, he said, "Why didn't you call me?" And I said, "Well, you blocked me." And it was just, all of the circumstances were such that we really needed to reconnect, but our egos, our conscious behavior, had made choices, to actually cut off that communication completely. He had blocked me. I hadn't contacted him. It was just these crazy events where, like, our egos, our conscious minds were making decisions about our relationship, about our conscious life. And in the meantime, our unconscious programming had organized him and me, our schedules, in the most bizarre way, that we would be in exactly the same place at exactly the same time. And the chances of that happening anything other than pure chance was so extraordinary, that's why this whole podcast show is about this topic. Because what I realized was, at that point, and I think Daniel also realized at that same point, that our lives are literally being run by our unconscious stories. We can be consciously, and our egos can have an agenda. We can manifest, or we can have our agenda for the day, or we can have our goals, and we can have our dreams. But at the end of the day, it's actually our unconscious stories that's actually running all of our programming. So we literally are like little computer programs, and the unconscious behavior is busy in the background, organizing that when I should get in an Uber, when Daniel should be stopping at that particular supermarket on the way back from Puerto Vallarta. I mean, I can't even tell you how extraordinary that meeting was, because he lives in Lodomarcus. He was visiting Puerto Vallarta on that particular day, which is like a 3-hour round trip, got stuck in a lot of traffic. And on the way back to his home, he stopped at that supermarket at exactly the time that I was walking into that supermarket to use the washroom. That's the only reason he stopped. So it's a very small window of time. And for me, as I told you the story, it was very random that I happened to just leave at that particular time to go to Western Union to pick up some money. And it was only just before I was about to leave that I was realized, oh, I'm out of coffee filters. I might as well just pop into the supermarket. So, we talk about synchronicity, but that is beyond, way beyond synchronicity. That is, a chance encounter, whatever you call it. But I think for me, it's just played. That program has been playing ever since, because I realize that is how we are literally running our lives. And I've talked in previous episodes about how our stories are all the clues to our soul purpose. All of the experiences that we have in our life ultimately will always, always point to why we're here. What is our purpose of being here? And what we don't realize is that all those stories are influencing what happens in our life every single day. And of course, we don't recognize that. We just out consciously, we're thinking and we're living our life, but we're not even considering all of that unconscious behavior that's actually deciding our destiny. So what can we do about that? I mean, okay, now I had this awareness, to have an event like that happen in such an extraordinary way that it was like a big wake up call where I just realized, wow, consciously, I had made that decision that our relationship was over, as had Daniel. Unconsciously, I had a whole different agenda. Which still now, when I try and reconcile the conscious behavior and the unconscious behavior, it's still very difficult to reconcile that. But that's why I really wanted to discuss this in this podcast show, because unless we truly actually recognize our unconscious stories, how can we honestly do anything about our life, or control our life or our destiny? And so this whole purpose of this particular podcast is to help you understand the importance of understanding our stories. Because if we don't understand our stories and we don't take other action, then we're just going to keep repeating the same stories over and over and over and over again. And I know that you have all heard this multiple times because we know that until we learn a lesson, that we will keep repeating that same story. So, if you have a history of abusive relationships, for example, you will keep attracting abusive relationships until you get to the point where you understand why you're attracting abusive relationships. And the first step for that is awareness of your stories. And so that brings me back to your story is your portal. And the only way that you can truly understand your stories and understand how they're influencing everything in your life and influencing all of your behaviors, from your relationships to your relationship with money, to your relationship with your careers, to your personal relationships. Everything is influenced by our stories. So that's why it's so, so important for you to take the time to explore your stories. Come to Mexico and spend a week on retreat where you're going to be really exploring your life stories. And it's those life stories that ultimately point to your life purpose. And so this is what happens when you come on a writer's retreat. Whether you come on a solo writing retreat with the purpose of wanting to write a book or wanting to write a chapter in a book, or whether you come on a writing retreat just for that journey of discovering your soul stories and exploring your soul stories and understanding your soul stories. And, you know, as I've said before, if you don't understand your stories, then you are going to keep repeating the same traumas over and over and over and over again. And we all know that. And so a writing retreat is an opportunity for you to really take the time to explore your stories. And you know, I when I talk about you know, our soul stories, there are certain ways, certain tools that you can use to access your stories. And I'm not talking about going back into, you know, the trauma, childhood trauma, or but it's more about understanding your lessons, because this is all about lessons. And whether we like it or not, our unconscious stories are directing our life. The unconscious stories are the directors of our movie, and we are the character in the movie. And we think that we're reading the script and we are deciding where we're going next. We think we are writing the story, but no, the director already has a script and he is going to insist on you living to that script, whether you agree or not, because your unconscious stories are actually running your programming. And as I gave the example of the synchronicity of running into Daniel, because my conscious mind and his conscious mind had decided that our relationship was over. But our unconscious stories had another idea. And so unconsciously, what he was doing on that particular day and what I was doing on that particular day intersected so that we could change our story. And so I just feel like that is a really good example of understanding that synchronicities are not accidental at all. Synchronicity is created by our unconscious stories, and those unconscious stories are running our programs. So I know I've said that over and over again, but I don't know how else to emphasize that. It's when something like that happens, you realize that the importance of understanding your stories. If you do not understand your stories, if you do not take the time to review your stories, to write about your stories, to understand the patterns that you keep living over and over and over again, then you will not move forward in your life. You will continue making the same mistakes. You will continue attracting the same relationships. You'll continue to have the same money challenges, because that is your unconscious stories in the background that is basically deciding your life destiny. So what I'm saying to you is it doesn't have to be that way. Take the time to understand your stories. Take the time to explore your stories. And if you are listening to this and you are in Sayulita, I have an invitation to join us for the Sayulita Soul Writers. It's an invitation for people that want to explore their soul stories. And that might lead to, writing about that in a book. It might lead to writing about it in your own book, or it may simply just open a door for you to start exploring your soul stories with the purpose of being in charge of your own destiny and not letting your unconscious stories rule you. Well, they will anyway. It's just that if you are consciously aware of it, then maybe you can direct it more in the direction that you want to go, rather than the unconscious stories literally directing your life. In my case, I am very happy that my unconscious decided to take control of my destiny and orchestrate this crazy synchronistic meeting of Daniel and myself in a destination that neither of us had planned to be in that particular day. And so it's very extraordinary when you get evidence in that type of way that our unconscious stories play a huge part in everything that happens in our life. And I mean everything that happens, even to the point where I even said to Jennifer at the time, how powerful really am I? Or how powerful are our unconscious behaviors? And she said to me, what, you mean that you think that maybe you were responsible for the storm, or that you were responsible for the retaining wall of the house to come down, just so that you could find an even better venue for your writing retreats and for our retreats? But maybe there is some unconscious truth in that, because now I am sitting in what I would consider to be the perfect situation. I have said multiple times that for writers to truly have an environment that's very conducive to creativity, to remembrance, to be able to have the focused attention and quiet time, that this is exactly the environment that you need. We have 6 private, beautiful little Mexican casitas. They are set in gorgeous tropical gardens with a beautiful pool. From the space where we have our group meetings, it has a spectacular ocean view. We're right on the edge of the jungle, so we're going to be able to take you on beautiful treks through the jungle to a very secluded, beautiful, wild beach that can only be accessed by a walk through the jungle. We are in a unique town. Sayulita is very vibrant. There are so many wonderful healers, and I'm learning more and more every day about the people that are in this amazing community. And I say, I now found my tribe at last, and it's extraordinary how I ended up here. So, but that's how I ended up here. My unconscious led me in all of these different ways to where I am right now at this point so that I'm empowered with the right location, the right retreat space, the right environment for my writers to be creative. It's so quiet here. It's so peaceful. It's so beautiful with the tropical gardens. I mean, I haven't even left this place for like a week just because I'm enjoying the quiet and the solitude and the beauty. The beauty is extraordinary. The gardens are so beautiful. The birds, the wildlife, the butterflies, everything is so extraordinarily beautiful here. And I can't wait to share it with you. So I'm announcing that our first retreat in this venue is November the 8th, which is not that far away. It's only, about 5 weeks away. So this is my first announcement of those dates, and then I will be getting the word out pretty fast. Each writer will have their own casita unless they want to share with somebody, and then the accommodation is as low as $400 for a week if you want to share your casita with somebody. So the pricing is very competitive. I'll be putting all of this information onto Your Story is Your Portal website. And I am very happy to be helping you to explore your unconscious stories so that you can be consciously aware of your unconscious stories that is basically running your life right now. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm very excited to be sharing about the next writers retreat coming up in this beautiful place. And we shall see you soon. Okay, I put all the information in the show notes, and I'm really looking forward to sharing your unconscious stories so that you can understand them and understand that your story is your portal to your soul purpose. Bye-bye for now.